Hi, good morning. I don't normally share anything live, or I should say, I haven't in months, but I wanted to take this opportunity to work within the inspiration that I had in this moment. What's something important? I'm kind of following along in this little automated trend, perhaps a conversation point. What can we do within the world to help do something that encourages and enlightens? And for me, the base foundation and what I've been thinking about since I woke up this morning and kind of had a Holy Spirit like aha light bulb moment where I'm able to have the ability to explain it. It's just with practice, it would become less lengthy in order for me to do. And it all starts with having a grounded moment and patience and taking pause. It is so remarkable, the foundation of what we can do within our world to help one another and to help create a world that future generations are going to want to thrive in. It begins, the foundation, the core foundation. So it turns out like the core foundation isn't necessarily building, the literal foundation of your house, because you actually need a blueprint, you need a design, you need an idea. And what does that all begin with? That begins with having an open dialogue, to have a conversation. And within that conversation, taking time and pause to actively hear and listen to one another. To know how to listen, to hear a person without listening to respond. To actually engage in the conversation. And that is where my thoughts are this morning. I don't know how many people this will reach or how many people need to hear this message or want to hear this message. But it all begins with us. It all starts with us. There are, philosophical, religious, spiritual foundations of thought within these practices that teach us on this. And I think that's why they exist in the world, why humankind is able to say like, hey, guess what? This is an option. This is a thing. I'm gesturing over here, even though you can't see it. So just imagine I'm a much more animated and, you kind of have a little bit of my personality there. It all begins with us. It all begins with the core foundation of what can be. And that's how we speak to each other, and that's how we listen to each other. Whenever we can actually take a moment to silence the mind, to have the ability to listen to one another, that creates the opportunities of conversation, of an actual dialogue, back and forth, active listening, not just active replying in conversation. Whenever we increase the size of our audience, we present opportunity to lose some of that focus. We may be consumed in our own agenda, our own ego, our own destination, to where we want what will best impact us instead of what will be the best thing for a group as a whole. Or say if you're in a position of importance and power, something that will ultimately help and shape everything. You are a representation of something that stands for an important political, religious, or business administration type of position. And for children, how it is that we adults are that person. We are that important person to the children, to the future generations of the world. So what we do, how we speak, how we act, how we talk to one another, and how we create conversation is what helps them know how to speak to other people, how to have the ability to listen, how to have a conversation. I repeat myself, and I might trace backwards and forwards and jump ahead. However, that is also my mind being able to find a way to process what I am trying to be able to say to you. I had voice recorded, a bit, and I do want to write it down, and I do want to make a video, but it turns out that this is the video. I can share the writing later, but this is the video. This is that nudge. This is that gut feeling. This is that kind of a pat on the back to go forward. Like, hey, it's okay. You know what? This is your moment. Go for it. Metaphorically speaking, isn't it interesting that the way we're able to understand moments in life is by moments like this? Moments that we're like, oh, okay, I get what you're trying to have me do now, whether it's our own sense of self or it's something of spiritual essence, whatever is nudging us in a direction that we need to go into, the ability to not ignore and to listen and then to proceed forward, whether we can do it in the immediate moment or we can do it in a moment after. It's so important. So it starts with us. It starts with our conversations. Whenever we can quiet the mind and we can take pause, we allow opportunity and for the big ideas of the future to flourish. One thing that I was voice recording so I could write it all down earlier was the concept that all these bases, base foundations of communication and open dialogue and just having the back and forth conversation, things that should come easy to us, that it all starts kind of around the beginning of humanity, whenever we were able to record history, whenever everything began. Now, if you want to look at the scientific calendar, we know that this world has been around for what is like centuries in humankind. And the vastness of it all, it can feel like a lot. So if you are religiously inclined to where you have so much of your belief tied into religion, you have to really realize that religion and spiritual foundation is a human-made concept, and humans were the dictators of the messages that they had and they received. And as we know, humans are subject to have their own flaws, hidden agendas, or, a misunderstanding. Or, as I trail on for just a moment, humans have the ability to not have the information as factual as what future generations will then discover, because in the current time being, in the current circumstances that you are, in the current place that you are, and that moment in your lifespan and what you've learned, that is the information that you use within your knowledge and understanding to be able to express what you're trying to say about something that is not directly connected to you. And yet it is connected to you, to be able to speak for other people. Either we get the words written down verbatim with the actions as a retelling. That's what the good storytellers of our time were, who wrote down these these scriptures, these passages, these texts, to be able to show us a recording of the past. It's similar to taking a video now, covering the news, politics, the media. That is a recording, literally, in speaking in general, of forms of a literal recording of the present moment that then becomes the history of our future. So everything written down, the technology wasn't there to have a audio-visual recording. So humans that are not without flaws, they're not flawless, they are imperfect, recorded history. Okay, let's start there. All right. So now we understand that. So humans that are not without flaws record history. So then that history is recorded as such. And it's like a game of telephone. If it's not dictated verbatim, it can be mixed up within the history in the course of time. So within the lines of conversation and communication, and I may lose a few people here because, it's one of these, get to the point already, but that's the point. That is the point. Taking time and pause and listening, active listening. It may be really drawn out, but you need to listen to the message. I mean, no wonder some of our spiritual leaders take time, and you might feel like you're just gonna fall asleep. Like they are taking way too long. Get to the point already. This instant gratification that we have driven into the core of our ideology that just wants everything. The touch of our fingers. Okay, I apologize. I wish I could edit that out because it was just silly, but you have to understand it's also a part of my personality. It's just, I feel very colorful, very joyful, very out there, and I want to be able to deliver the message, but you have to be able to listen, and that starts with the communication. That starts with active communication skills, listening without agenda to reply, without the need to feel that you need to give input. Yes, it is driven into the mini core of us, and I am definitely in that category as well, to where sometimes I'm in a conversation or a group conversation or a one-on-one, and because of my own physical ailments like fibromyalgia, to where it's difficult for me to remember or to be able to find my own thoughts. Whenever that kind of tries to take the steering wheel, takes the driver's seat, it's one of these Jesus take the wheel type of moments, because you realize that you can get distracted and get lost, similar to like ADHD. It's like poof, there goes that. All right, squirrel. Active communication, listening skills. It even happens to myself as I'm trying to lay down an example, as you can clearly see. And I've had semi-adequate sleep. I'm not overly exhausted right now, but I feel like I'm able to speak in a fluid, seamless, almost like way of explanation. So I'm taking this moment, and it's kind of exciting for me because this does not happen very often. So that's why I compare this to your aha light bulb message from the Holy Spirit. Jesus sent God speak through my lips to hear by others type of moment. I feel like when we don't take those moments to listen to the people who are expressing in this manner, in this passion, that we have missed opportunities for growth and for the advancement of humankind within an age of instant gratification and technology everywhere at our fingertips. That was the whole point to me trailing back and getting myself distracted. Generations that grew up with typewriters instead of writing everything down with your pen and a calligraphy style of writing, ink and pen, okay? Or carving into stone. We have become so influenced by the ease of communication that our ability to focus has been hindered in a sense, to where it affects every aspect of daily life. And it starts with being able to have a conversation, to be able to have an open dialogue, to be able to have an exchange back and forth, to where you feel like I'm hearing you and you are hearing me. Now let's listen to one another and let's create an opportunity for accomplishing whatever we feel like that is, whether that is to just merely support one another, or it's to make an amendment, to make a suggestion in a corporation about what you want to do in order to make things work more, or how to, help kids in schools, and a new way of helping our future generations. People who have that passion, I feel, should not be silenced, especially within it should not be silenced when it's within the lines of good and kindness and nature and tracking back to religion here, because I'm going to use the word Jesus. I'm going to name Jesus, and I'm going to use Jesus's name. Or maybe I'll use the name of God, or I will use Buddha to name things. Whatever it be. I need you to understand that. Please take me seriously. I'm having that nudge, that calling right now to speak with you directly, for you to hear me. I need you to understand that the future that we have within our countries, within our nations, within our world, it's not too late. It begins with communication, creating open dialogue, active listening without a geared up, ready to present statement, without denial, without dismissal. To have that faith and trust that the person that is speaking to you is not speaking for their own personal agenda, but they're actually thinking about the greater as a whole. Okay? This is the way that Jesus lived. He's just a person like us, raised by people like us, to a mother that was ever so grateful, a young mother, a teenage mother. We just had Mother's Day, and there's so much division within the world, and my heart is just so great that I just wanted to wish everyone a happy Mother's Day. And please, I'm wishing you now, I hope that you had a happy Mother's Day. And if it not be happy, then, and I know it sounds weird, and I have said this before, but I wish you a peaceful and comforting Mother's Day. I wish you a peaceful, comforting day, because what has become within our world is that we're not always listening to each other. We're not always hearing one another. I see you. I sit with you, and I recognize that you may feel alone right now, and you may feel not heard. but I'm telling you that I am with you right now. I am that person who sits with you because I am the embodiment of feeling that same sense, the isolation or the frustration. As I look upon my cast that is filled with drawings and signatures, and that is the joyful part of healing. If you have to have a surgery and you have a cast put on your body, I celebrate these moments that are out of my control because I know ultimately this is not going to last forever. And if something does last, like a long life disability or ailment, I've learned how to navigate within that. So I'm not here to teach you how to do that. I'm just here to have a conversation and to explain these things, to explain that I cannot tell you all the aspects of why, because that will have to be a future video or writing or recording, or look at my past recordings and writings, because believe me, I've spoken about them and I've recorded them. And it's okay to track backwards to go forwards. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. That's how change and evolution and advancement within technology happens. To be humbled, to be gracious, to be generous, without the need for acknowledgement and recognition, to just be good and kind and wholehearted. Jesus sat with all many varieties and walks of life of people. Jesus was born to a human mother. Be it divine or be it not divine, however he came into the world, however you believe. And yes, this is going to upset some people who are religiously inclined over, an imagination of storytelling. This is not to lead to any offense for you. This is just to give that grace and opening, and that, guess what? This is applicable to all people, regardless of your beliefs. Jesus was a human within history that lived, that was very influential. If you take that religious aspect out of it, just human nature, listening, openness. Yes, there may have been something mystical or magical or supernatural as far as an ability to do something. And things like that have been persecuted continually over time because it's seen as radical. It's seen as change making. It's seen as scary because that's not what I'm familiar with. That's not what I know. But it turns out that is also the baseline of human history. We were not born to want to destroy one another. We were born and we grew to be able to be there for one another and to help one another. Isn't that incredible? I think it's incredible. Jesus was a person just like you and I. Jesus was born a long time ago within an age in history where advancement was you had shelter over you. You had a place to go to the bathroom. You had food. You had the ability to speak to one another in a more common language that we're used to, as opposed to something that seems animalistic or prehistoric. So, within the lines of communication that isn't just like what is perceived to be a bunch of grunts and emphasis on pitch or making sounds. I'm going to do my best to stay steady within this moment. But I'm saying that given the circumstances that Jesus was born into and where he lived within that time of the world, And what an amazing, remarkable time to live in, but also like terribly frightening, because the ability to warn others of things to come was not at their fingertips. The ability for them to tweet out, and I know it's X now, but I'm an oldie. MySpace, AOL, dial-up internet, typewriters, okay? Rotary phones, phone booths. I feel like I grew up in such an awesome generation, because it's like you have the advancement of, the 17, 18, 1900s into now. And there's that appreciation and that acknowledgement and the thanks for all of my past generations and all of my ancestors to get to me to this moment now. Just basic line appreciation. Jesus grew up in a simpler time. Let's just call it that. We know from history that he was a remarkable young man. We don't know much about his childhood, but as in any child, I imagine the mischievous situations that could have come along, or similar to a seen but not heard generation, he grew up knowing the basic lines of how it was appropriate to speak with other people, to do things, and to what was expected of you. Now, in other countries, it's not feeling as threatening or detrimental, or like kind of almost in a fear-based environment. But that's just our way of life. That's just our way of living. And we are just kind to one another, and we just help one another. I keep going back to Buddhism, because I continuously have said since the year 2007, whenever I started to learn more about Buddhism, and I loved, reading different quotes from the Buddha, the Buddhist practices, the way of life. It was just so amazingly peaceful and quiet and calm, and helped me slow down and think and appreciate. And Buddhism is connected to Christianity. Is that remarkable? When Jesus was wandering for those days in his solitude, we do not have direct history of where he went. However, I grant you this one question for you to sit within it, and I will not give full context, because I would like you to help figure this out for yourself and come to a terms of understanding without my influence. Why is Buddhism a way of life and living, kind nature, without emphasizing suffering, inner suffering, that we then project upon other people because of what was projected onto us? Generational. Why does that seem so very connected to the core aspects of what Jesus taught and spoke on and lived within? Why is that so coincidentally connected? Why does it sound so familiar? Why does it seem that one spirituality, one foundation of faith, can be connected to another within the course of history, within, in a sense, such a close timeline, and yet so far from one another? So this morning, whenever I was recording my thoughts, of which then I wanted to write out, I went along the lines of, why does it seem like I didn't say why, but now I'll say it. Why does it seem that every 20 years, it feels as though humanity, the way we think, the way we communicate with one another, what may seem as progressive or liberal or just, the change makers, oh, change is scary. Let's not do that. We got to stick to routine and history. History and routine teaches us this. This is what we're doing. But we're also doing an adapted version of that. So it's not truly a base tradition. It's adapted and it's grown. And whether or not we want to accept it, that is also within change. Every 20 years, it feels like it's almost like we have a humanity reset button. We have another opportunity for growth and change. And we can either take that as an opportunity to go forwards, to take the aspects that we've appreciated and that work well within the past, weave that in through the present so that we can help shape the future in a way that will give us ultimately what we have dreamed of. And it turns out, as we humans who have freedom of thought, who have freedom of speech, the ability to think for ourselves and speak for ourselves, especially if we are without the influence of other people and almost to an abusive nature from some influential people in our lives, be it our family members or world leaders. It is of great importance that we are the change makers in a positive and productive way so that the future can become something that we've only dreamt of at this current moment. And as far as your current moment is concerned, you do not have to wait. You can reach that current moment that you've always reached for and longed for and be that person now. And that's what Jesus did. His mother Mary must have been a incredibly remarkable young woman whenever she was pregnant and she was visited to say, "You're going to have a baby. But I'm a virgin. I have not slept with a man." "Well, you will have a child, and it will be a son. And that son will do remarkable things and be a guide for people." Or perhaps there was no message, or maybe there is. There is truth weaved within the lines of religion, within the texts of spirituality, within the history. There is truth. And for a lot of instances, it's all true. Humans, written by humans, who are not without their faults. We don't always get it right. And sometimes we record the message just ever so slightly different to where that's not exactly how it happened, but it's good enough because it's pretty close to what happened. Humans do not come without their faults. And I am the first to admit that I am definitely not flawless. And I take ownership of that, and I appreciate it. And I can admit this with you because I feel like it helps show the honesty within ourselves whenever we can say, guess what? I am not perfect. But I'm going to appreciate who I am, and wherever I feel that I need to focus and take pause, I can take that moment and give myself grace to say, it's okay. I love you. And I love you. Who's listening right now? Jesus has taught me how he lived his life, how he compassionately cared for other people. Jesus has walked by my side, and I his. To learn through the text how to be the best version of ourselves within the version that we are now. Okay. I'm thinking of different TV shows or movies that can kind of enlighten on that aspect. And kudos to those creators, to those imaginative people, to be able to like create an environment that makes you think. That is just so remarkable. And I admire it, and I think it's just beautifully astonishing. Jesus taught us how to care for one another, how to be there for one another, and fortunately was born into a time where more people were recording history, so things could be written down more verbatim. You know how there are certain moments within the current moment that something happened within a conversation or a moment in time, and you can actually recall it with fine detail down to the very last pin that fell out of the fabric onto the carpet. You couldn't quite hear it like it would on a wood floor, but there was just this ever so sensation of the sound of the fabric, of the little tussles of carpet fibers. You could hear that. That's how focused you were. And that's my own sense of distraction, to being able to be a storyteller, to be able to talk about these things, to be able to openly allow my mind to be able to say things. It's so incredibly enlightening and humbling. And that's why whenever I tell you that I have walked with Jesus and that Jesus has shown me a path and a way and a light, that the Holy Spirit has, in a sense, shined down upon me, that God has spoken, that I have seen through God's eyes. You're going to have to take a leap of faith with me. And you're going to have to just believe me. You don't have to believe me. Go ahead, let's have a conversation about it. The baseline of a good majority of within the world that is Christianity has been divided so many different times within the decades and eras of history. So then the message starts to get skewed or moved or turned. This is not to lay blame on sects of Christianity, different areas, different denominations. This is not to say that your practice is wrong or that you're not saying a good message, because I don't know all the different denominations. I will admit that, but I am learning. I am open to understanding and learning, because I want to be able to better express what I feel, which is down to the core, is that everything is connected. Well, how do I explain everything's connected? Well, I need to learn about it too. But I need to learn about it in my own time frame so that I can explain it. Because then if I can explain these things and I can show you, and I can type out, share whatever visual or written example to describe the time frame, the timeline. For those who go by faith and live in a sense where Jesus was, where it's almost a perceived sense now of blind trust. You don't believe them or not believe them, but you will follow with what they say and what they do and how they practice. Because there's something about them that just draws you. It makes you want to be a better version of yourself, because that is something to look up to have a desired, driven motivation to be, someone of peace, stress, anxiousness, worry, this fast-paced world we live in. What are we doing? Uh, I chuckle because, that's exactly it. We need to slow down so we can talk to each other, so we can have those conversations, so we can do things to help one another. I've had my own challenges over the last 6 months, with the last calendar year, within the last several years, within the last decade, within the last 19 years. My life has been kind of like turned upside down forcefully against my will. When I became disabled, it was definitely life-shattering. And then when I was injured, not even a month later within marriage, it's like that till death do us part, in sickness and health. Yeah, that took the forefront. And if I go back even further, how I grew up, how I learned to make friends, how I learned to speak with others, how I was treated, how I was shown love and gratitude and appreciation, all of that shapes who we will become and who we are now. The difference is can we acknowledge what has happened in our past and what we want to be in the future to help shape our present? It's about mindful, active listening. And it's that open dialogue. I am a broken record this morning because I know I'm saying the same thing, and I know I might not be holding a lot of attention for anyone watching, and that's okay. Because taking pause and slowing down to actively hear someone can be not only tedious and exhausting in this fast-paced world of get to the point already, instant gratification, the internet at my fingertips. It's hard to slow down and take pause. When we look back at the time of Jesus, who would be sitting next to a person, expressing all those fast-paced thoughts, expressing all of the worries of health, expressing difficulty about money or influence or position or, the desire for power and position. Jesus sat with all these people. He sat beside them and listened to them. He learned how to be patient. And that is of great thanks to his mother Mary, to the community that he grew up in, to, if we leave out the fact of what the Bible teaches us, being the Son of God, if we leave that part out, just looking at him as a human being, he grew up with love and caring and compassion and a supportive environment that was influential and absolutely necessary for him to become who he would become. And yes, I may lose you now, but that's okay. Because when you're ready to hear something, you allow yourself the time. Even if you're like, girl, you could have gone so much faster, and, seriously, like, do a rough draft and then record it and record it again. That way you get to the point. But see, like sermon telling, I think I created a new word there, like a pastor or a reverend or a minister speaking at church on a Sunday morning. That sermon has been practiced and fine-tuned to the point to where you're like, all right, all of that within 30 to 40 minutes. Sometimes those bullet points that we want to talk about, we can't include in the big picture. So we'll spread that message out over a few weeks. And that's great because it gives us time to dive in to each little area. That's what I love about ways of life and living that teach us how to be calm and how to be patient, how to be loving, how to show ourselves loving kindness so that we can be there for other people. how to admit that life is suffering, life is pain. Physical pain that we can feel from a moment that we are just traumatically taken from one environment that we have learned that is love and comfort. And we cannot, we cannot express it through our words because we need to learn how to speak words. But it's a thought and it's a feeling. We had comfort and safety and love. Hopefully we all felt that when we were in womb. I pray that we all have felt that when we have been in womb. Because that right there, that foundation, that also gives you the blueprint for the person that you will become. We are unborn and then born again. A saying that has been referenced within Christianity, to be born again. But that's what that is. It is a rebirth, in a sense. Backtracking. So once we are unborn and then we are born into a world where we have to breathe on our own, and we are cold, we are confused, we might be angry because we were taken out of our comfort and our warmth and what we were used to a world that is bright and loud and everything. It's not muffled anymore. We can hear it all very, very easily. And it's all fast-paced and it's just so much all at once. Those with ADHD or who have difficulty within focus can understand that element right there. Not to belittle or diminish the feelings that we all carry. However, I observe that it all comes down to a core type of foundation. And from the moment we're born, we are thrust upon a moment that is just louder and bigger than all of us. And those around us who help comfort and guide us help shape who we will become within that foundation. So Mary had to have been this amazingly calm, or the perception of calm, comforting her child, who would then become this influential person and this guide who sat with all people. And within the lines of "My Redeemer lives," and what we celebrate within Easter, to be risen from death to have eternal life. Isn't it remarkable when you can make that connection and apply it to an aspect of your here and now? Like an aha moment in a conversation or an idea, a nudge from the Holy Spirit, or is it just coincidence? Mary must have been a remarkable young woman to be able to have a child that would grow to become this person of importance, who helped make a path to lay blueprints, a way to live and how to live life, like the Buddha. Isn't that amazing? It all starts with Mary, doesn't that? And before Mary, all of her ancestors and generations before her. I feel as though I want to stay focused, so I'm not going to dive into that today. I don't need to prove of my knowledge in order to express it. So there's that leap of faith and trust again. A remarkable young lady helped raise this child who #gender identification, born with the genitalia that would then show, as humankind has now called it, male reproductive organs. So therefore classified as male. Who you are on the outside does not define who you are on the inside. And if you don't understand, or that upsets you and I've lost you right here, just understand that comparative to different people of walks of life, well, that is the same with gender identification and your human sexuality. What is attractive to you and what feels like a safe person to you, and etc. Jesus taught us how to be kind-hearted people. The Buddha helped give us the blueprint on how to find peace. And within the lines of history, people have not always done things or acts with the right mind frame. Perhaps they have been told by past generations that this is how it is. That is their belief system. And that is how religions and sects of spirituality came to be. And I know that sounds a little off, sects of like a sect, a sector, an organization, a group of. I just want to make sure that I'm making it crystal clear what I'm meaning there. Anyhow, to be able to have the ability to sit with the beggar, the person who sells their body, the person who hoards their money away, the person who gets satisfaction from hurting others, the person who sacrifices themselves to a fault to where they are not thinking of themselves, to the person who just needs help to get them back on their feet, to even the person that would want to persecute and take away your voice because it is seemed as progressive and it's seen as too far out of their realm of comfort. Well, that's scary. That's threatening. You are now threatening the very core foundation that I am familiar with. It's okay to feel that way. However, we need to be thoughtful about other people because what we do and say affects them too. It is not all about us. It's okay to be fearful of change. Jesus moved along those lines with change. And he tried to do his best just by being who he was to sit with other people. So now, taking us back to the beginning where I started this video about what I feel. It's about the way we speak to one another, the way we can talk to each other, the way we can create the opportunities for discussion within the conversations that can create change. Change that does not have to be scary or frightening or seen as progressive or too fast-paced. In our instant gratification, at our fingertips news system that we have created with the amazing technological advancement of humankind, we shouldn't be so scared of the what is and what can be. We don't have to hold ourselves onto the past and cling for dear life. Because having the loving kindness that we have for one another, that is the core value of Christianity, of what became after the death of Jesus. if you take religion out of it and you just look at him as a person, he taught us how to be cool, man. How to love one another. How to be there for one another. How to listen to one another. How to help one another. Jesus taught us a way of living and how to live life like the Buddha taught his followers. Now, it's a shame that stereotypically aligned human declaration of gender identification has been predominantly male. So a male voice is what is written within history and seen to be taken more seriously with influence than what is seen as a biologically female voice speaking to you, and taking the gender aspect of it and throwing it on its head in the rainbow of our LGBTQIA 2S plus plethora of explanation of the amazing umbrella of our rainbow LGBT plus rainbow brothers and sisters. If we open our minds and allow the conversation and the dialogue and take gender identification out of it, we are just people. We are humans speaking to other humans. We can see we do not need to have this conflict. That Jesus taught us to sit with all people regardless of what they do or how they identify. As long as things are done within good and kind nature, loving, that is what the core foundation of Christianity is. That is the person that Jesus was. So I invite you to sit with that. I invite you to take your pause and your moment to quiet your mind, whether that is a moment washing the dishes or mowing the grass outside, gardening, journaling, working on a sketch in your sketchbook, painting, walking your dog, seeing what shenanigans your cat will get into as you throw toys, looking at your scaly or multi-legged housemate that you take care of and you call your pet or family. I can give a plethora of examples, but I invite you to take this moment and allow yourself to slow down. Clear your thoughts. For me, years ago, especially back in the year 2008, whenever I decided to dive in, 6 months prior, whenever I said, if I keep going along this route, I might just kill myself. Now, calm down. It's because I was spiraling. I was deeply depressed because I went from a year prior to where I was walking and I was okay, but I was in really bad pain all the time with my herniated disc in my lumbar spine, to then being permanently disabled, having permanent nerve damage, having a permanent lifelong drop foot that would create years, and I do mean 19 years of just difficulty, and then the last decade of that being such a spiral downward fall to where I am just now recovering after 6 months of not being able to walk on my leg. I now have it fused. My ankle is fused and I'm healing. And I might be able to have what feels like a rerun of opportunities because I will be able to walk again. My hopes are of the future, of optimistic and hopeful, because I don't know what the future holds, but I'm going to stay positive because whatever can be and will be exactly how it's meant to be. And I will take this one step at a time with appreciation and gratitude, because I am given a moment to start anew, in a sense, or keep up with what I am doing. And whenever people say they have a feeling of they're made for more, this is kind of, in a sense, what that feeling feels like. To be able to actively speak out or speak up and support one another and show how the lines of history are connected and tell other people how to talk to each other, how to listen to one another, how to have conversations without the need to knee-jerk, react, reply. I am human, so I fall into this trap, so to speak, of when I'm speaking with other people. Sometimes I have this uncomfortable sense of, okay, all right, fibromyalgia, I don't want to forget this. I don't want to forget this. Okay, now I'm going to jump in. It sounds like they took a breath of air before another person jumps into the conversation. And then that way I can say my thought before I forget it. Okay, backtracking to 2007, I thought if I kept going along the lines of eating for comfort, my weight spiraling upwards towards a number that I actually don't know if I ever reached, but it was well over 300 pounds. I was quite unhealthy. I was very unhappy. And I kept being told by a neurosurgeon that I would get better. Oh, those nerves will regenerate. It will regenerate. It will regenerate. It was like a politician who doesn't want to disclose something who seems wicked and corrupt. Their lines of communication was for, I guess, reputation, self-protection, to preserve their reputation, to not tarnish it by accidentally saying the wrong thing. So basically, they're pleading the fifth by telling you that, oh, it's going to be fine. You're going to heal over time. Well, it can't possibly be permanent damage, or I don't want to take medical practice liability because I made a mistake. So there's a lot of victim blaming or pointed fingers or just not taking any personal accountability. We see that same thing in aspects of the current here and now, by the way. So the irony is not wasted upon me and my sense, because I laugh and chuckle at my own thoughts and how I can connect all the pieces. And so that was me in the year 2007. I was in a very not great place. And because spiritual opportunities were not presented to me, I was also going through that wave of life. And what happened due to that was feeling like almost a sense of betrayal. Why wasn't I shown these other walks of life and these ways of living? Perhaps if it was just woven into a core foundation, I would not have felt so betrayed, or that it was deemed as forbidden. So I was at a dark place, and I thought if I kept going down this road, down this path, down this very unproductive, unhelpful path, that I would end up killing myself. And I said no. It was a split-second realization that has taken several minutes here to explain, because I can see how that is perceived to be extreme or alarming. Like, oh no, like somebody says that, we got to pay attention. Yeah, but you also have to hear them. So active listening comes into play, and that's why that's so important. That can create the blueprint of dialogue and how to interpret what you're hearing, which, by the way, is easier said than done. However, it is a practice and you have to put the time into it. And once you have the practice, it becomes habit. And then what becomes habit becomes second nature. And then you're not even thinking about it. Like the fact that your mind is working so quickly to be able to do everything that you're doing with your hands and your voice and your speaking and the way you move your body. It's all second nature. You don't think about the fact that we are born creatures that are just like remarkably amazing because we have, our batteries are always charged up, ready to go. We're breathing, our heart's beating, our mind is telling us what to do. It's sending these nerve and electrical responses, these little, I don't want to get down on this path too much because I want to stay focused. So see, I will admit that I get lost, but it's also because I am so inspired to be able to talk about every little aspect. So there I was, sitting within the lines of trying to figure out a lot about my life, almost having like a rebirth, because I went from being a typically placed human, who in all aspects could do things that we all take for granted, that is second nature, to then having that swiftly and abruptly taken. And I had to figure out how to do it differently, to be able to do it the same way I used to do. But there is no same way. And we're so hard on ourselves whenever we think in that aspect. We allow an opportunity for us to feel hard on ourselves or down on ourselves, like we're not good enough. Like, oh, look, I backslid and I gained 20 pounds. Clearly, this opportunity in my life is now over. I'm not going to be able to go forwards. That's right. Okay. Well, you're not good enough. You're not beautiful. We can't do this. That's self-destructive mind thoughts. And it will not benefit us in the long run. So to give ourselves extended grace, like, hey, you know what? You're going through a tough time and I love you. And it's going to be okay. And even if it's not okay, it will be whatever it's meant to be. I took that moment when my life shattered, or at least felt like it shattered. It very drastically altered and changed. But it purposely made me slow down. And it wasn't until I finally reached a moment where I could actually take real pause that I had my aha, light bulb, Holy Spirit, Jesus sent, God-driven message into me that said, stop. And in a split second, I knew that if I continued down the path, that that's what would happen. And I, in that split second, decided, without even having to say anything, that my life would never be the same from that very moment. So whenever I talk about my past and history and the year 2007 and that summer, how I thought that if I went down that path and I kept going, that I was going to end up killing myself. But I decided that no, I wanted to live. And I changed my life and I saved my life. That is a pivotal moment within my history that has helped shape ultimately who I am today and who I've become. There's been other moments within my life that have done very similar moments, but that moment there, that was my active choice and my active feeling, and be it coincidence or something spiritual or divine, I found my way. And I feel ultimately it has helped me for the better. So I learned that what people say isn't always for the help and benefit of other people. Oftentimes it can be for their own hidden or very obvious agenda. And it may be said in the best interest of others, or it is in the interest of themselves with the perception of it is best for all of us. That is our current time frame, and how it can relate to what we go through and what happens to us and how we are with other people. I saved my life, and I decided that I wanted to learn more about me and how I could help myself, and that spirituality was a foundation that I wove into my core foundation. And for me, that was Buddhism, which ironically is closest in my sense and in my research, the most, oh no, now the fibro's taking hold. The words are starting to scramble, or at least I can say it clearly within my mind, but my mouth is deciding to sound like a jumbled record that somebody keeps knocking out of placement because they're jumping right by the Victrola, the record player, with crickety wood floors. Anyway, I laugh and I smile about the irony of our history and time and how it applies to the present. Buddhism is, in my sense, from my history and what I've learned within my education, the closest alignment to the base Christian foundation that Jesus Christ taught his disciples and followers. How to be good people, how to help each other, how to do good by ourselves and do good for others, how to actively sit and listen to one another. Isn't it amazing? And that's what Jesus taught us. So does it need to be that difficult? All the different denominations of Christianity, of world religions, of spirituality, of faith in a higher power within Mother Nature or otherwise. Can we begin to discuss how very connected it is? Or are we going to continue to separate ourselves out of ego or pride or tradition? Change can be entirely scary. And I will be the first person to say that whenever things have been taken out of my control due to health and physical ailments, I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to find a place. But eventually, whenever it happened as many times as it did, and especially in that pivotal 2007 year moment, where it's like, no, I will not continue down this path. I want to live. So how can we live anew? I asked you to consider a thought, and I thought that my words were finished speaking, but yet here I am, moments later, and I am just now reaching what feels like a conclusion of my conversation with you all today. And to whoever listens to this in entirety, I hope that at some point within my words, you are able to take what you needed to hear, or perhaps something that you've been praying on, or something that you've been considering. Perhaps this helps you find a place where you have your aha light bulb, Holy Spirit, Jesus and God sent message, that nudge, that coincidental, oh, okay, I figured it out. Or maybe it's just one part of that blueprint to help weave that into your core foundation so that you can go forward. If that's all I did by expressing myself and putting myself out there and being vulnerable with you, then that's great. If I enraged and angered you, then I welcome you to look within and try to understand, why do you feel that way? Why is that your knee-jerk reaction? Why do my words based on love, of loving kindness, why does that threaten your ideology or your core foundation? I speak with acts of love, and I want you to be able to be the best versions of yourself and to be able to do what you hope to accomplish. My friends, it begins with our conversations, our dialogue, the way we speak to each other, and our active listening. So, a quick, brief timeline, just to take from that 2,000-year moment where I saved my life by just wanting to do better by myself, to find my sense of calm and peace and reflection so that I could move forward, and realizing that just because something happened to alter my life, it did not have to be the end. It was, in a sense, a new beginning, to be born again, to be able to have a second chance, to be able to walk forward, navigating within the new path. History is written, cannot be changed because it already happened. So the circumstances of what I went through were what it was. What I did in that moment is what counted the most. And I can either look back and be mad or upset or depressed or feel completely diminished and feeling like I am just unable, unworthy. I can replay, or I can honor those feelings and those emotions, and I can take that into my present, and I can move forward in my ever-growing future present moment. Okay, long-winded there, but what happened after that is within 2 years, I lost about 150 pounds. I got my body to a strong and physical state of strength and endurance. I learned, well, this was after 2008, mind you, that I started doing all the big things, not just mindful eating and just being slower with my thoughts and more calm with myself. Like, that was the beginning. But then 2008, I became vegetarian, and that's whenever everything for me started expanding. And then by 2009, I became a vegan. That was a very big year for me, because I lost the majority of my physical weight then, which was also burdening my spirit, because I felt so down on myself that I didn't like who I saw in the mirror. I might not be where I want to be at all right now, in a sense, because I have been literally physically weighed down by the circumstance that I've been placed in. But I look at myself in the mirror with love. Yes, the clothing doesn't fit the way I want it to. However, that is a temporary moment, and that can change. And if my perception is only built in a surrounding on my physical appearance, I will not allow myself on the inside, what defines me as a person, to be able to be expressed. So I need to set that down. That's that ego and pride, and what builds us up in a sense to where we feel like we need to be better than. 2009, I lost the largest amount of weight, like I said, and by 2010 and 2011, I was finally down about 150 pounds. Okay, so for many people, I looked unhealthy. I looked too skinny. And you know what's interesting is that I wasn't even where the BMI scale said was healthy weight for my age, for my height. It said I was still overweight. Okay, so I say 150. It was actually over 150 pounds, technically. However, isn't it ironic that we have a scale to say, oh, you're healthy, you're not healthy? Girl, if I lost any more weight, I felt like I might disappear. I wasn't that incredibly skinny, but you do not need to be a size 0 to be beautiful. All shapes and sizes, all colors under the rainbow. You are all beautiful, and you are designed exactly how you were meant to be, which is also the point. My life went forward from 2009, 10, 11. Finally, year 12 happened, 2012. IVF, pregnant right away. Got the lottery, right? No, that was just the beginning. And then it was like another restart that needed to happen. After the challenges of conception, pregnancy, losing children, halfway to term, the definition that says spontaneous abortion or miscarriage, the lack of acknowledgement of these tiny humans that are exactly that, tiny people. But we're not going to recognize that they're people and place a death certificate until after they look more like people. We should have just given them 1 or 2 more weeks, and then they looked more like people, so we can say that that was a person who died. Who, mind you, by the way, the carrier of that person or persons, they are not at fault for what happens through time when a child passes. And that's a sensitive topic, and I'm not going to get into it, not right now, not today. However, having the right to choose, having that self-interest on what you feel is best for your body, does not have anything to do with another person's body. Okay? So 2012 happened, and our world was turned upside down. My husband, who's been there for me and who helped me throughout all those years, while I was going through my own journey, while he was going through his own journey, with family deaths, with tragedies, with distance of friendships and friendships anew, work history, educational history, like all of it. 2013, we decided to go for another try. And then by late 2013, it's like, oh my gosh, it's actually happening. But then there was that fear. 2014, I had my first living child. There's so many aspects that are like influential time frames that have happened within decades that it's like, I can't remember anything about that year, but I remember this one thing. Well, if you have a trauma-like response to memory or with memory due to actions of the past, whether you are conscious of it or it's in your subconscious, it all affects how you process things, how you communicate, how you have conversations with people, and ultimately what you feel about yourself and how you treat and believe or don't believe others. 2014 happened, and it's been a whirlwind ever since then. And my health has taken a lot of pit stops or breakdowns. Now I'm thinking of like a car metaphor. And I've had to do what I can within that moment. And sometimes I feel like I am just so upset about it that I have to sit pulled over on the side of the road for quite a while before I'm like, all right, let's get in the car, let's call AAA. Okay, let's get that spare put on, or let's get it towed to where it needs to go. That's like our lives, right? We need to take that ownership and put a name to it. We don't have to just sit within our own pride and ego and say, I can do it myself. I don't need to ask for help. When ultimately we actually do need to do those things. Especially if it will be at the doom of our own life, because we do not say, please help me. Please sit with me. Please help tow my car to where it needs to go and put that spare tire on. can't do it by myself. I need support too. To listen actively to each other, to hear each other, to create the conversation, that open dialogue. If we don't allow ourselves to have the time to take pause and actively listen within our communication with other people and with ourselves, how are we able to go forward? So last several years, I have had one physical setback to the next physical setback. And I decided long ago, over 19 years ago, that those big changes might happen. And I don't know how much longer I have to live on this earth. I don't know how much longer I have the ability to physically walk or do things or say things. Our family history and the ailments that we have, or what, is thrust upon us out of our control. It is simply that. It is not within our control. We have to just go with the flow of it. We have to reroute if GPS takes us into a wrong direction. And if we didn't read our map correctly, to get us to where we need to go, we need to take pause, let our minds clear and calm so we can go forward. So everything that I've had in my own life has shaped and helped me be the me that I am now. And I love every single chapter of that past person and every single era. Thank you, Taylor Swift. Oh, I love you, girl. Every single era that has helped shape me into the person I am today, that's able to, as clearly as I can, fluidly explain everything. All right, let us pray. Dear Universal Creator, our God, thank you for allowing us to have the opportunities to shape our current moment, to listen to one another, to actively hear one another, and not just ready ourselves with a moment of reaction, to listen, to speak, to reply. Thank you for helping us understand that we have the capability to love one another, improve upon ourselves, and support one another. And that ultimately it starts with how we speak to each other, with how we communicate with one another, and creating moments of open dialogue within our conversations. That the future does not need to be a frightening experience. The change does not need to be world and life-shattering. That everything that you have taught us has been amazingly, beautifully written by humans. And your message is sent from divine. Dear God, what an amazing life we live, and thank you through what is unseen, and for the most of humanity unheard, because we need to take pause to be able to hear you, to hear that inner voice, to hear that aha light bulb, what's seen as possibly coincidental moment, to be able to hear you. Thank you for helping us take pause in those moments. May we be the change we need to see within this world, that we need to be. Thank you for showing us other ways of faith and spirituality, to teach us how we are connected, to show us that we can be the best version of ourselves, and we can be the helpers and the makers and the doers, that we can be everything that we are meant to within our potential, the gifts that we have been given. Thank you. Praise God. Thank you for everything that you have given. To understand and have the enlightened awakening, to understand with gratitude, humbled and gracious, that because of your guiding spirit, that we are where we are today. Dear God, thank you for all things that you do for us to be a guiding force within our human lives, and for being called by many names in many denominations and walks of faith and spirituality. Thank you for being within Mother Nature, Mother Earth, and to be all. I pray that we are allowed, with open minds and open hearts, that we have that leap of faith and that trust to understand how everything is connected, and how we speak to each other is what is just as important on how we build our foundations. Dear God, thank you for helping be that guide, for sticking by me while I went through my own journey, and allowing me the ability to be able to try to use my voice to help other people. Thank you, dear God, thank you. And thank you for being there for everyone. May you help guide us. May you help comfort us. And may you remind us that we are not alone. May our week be peaceful and comforting, and may we take this opportunity to be there for one another. So go forth and be exactly as you're meant to. May we weave the current advancement of the world. May we weave that within our foundation, that is our history and our tradition and our past, to become the foundation that will be the core of our living for one another, to be able to live fully and within praising your name. Amen. Thank you so much for listening. And I pray this is received in a positive way, but I know it's going to take time. So thank you so much. And until we speak again, take care. Namaste. Peace be with you. I'm holding on to hope. I know we can do this. Let's start a conversation. Take care, dear friends.